Hey y'all, what's going on? It's Athena Amoeba, your friend in exploring the power of your mind, the power that you can use to create your own universe. In this video, we're digging into the extraordinary and life-changing content of Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. Now today we're getting into chapter 1, which is mostly a summary and an overview of what's to come in the rest of the book, but there's actually some really valuable content in here, so I'm reviewing chapter 1. And also because I don't want y'all to miss out on a single chapter. Of course, the only way to make sure that you don't miss out on anything is to read the book, because I really highly recommend it, so read the book. But if you're not going to read the book, Awaken the Giant Within, then I want to make sure you get close to not missing out. So here's a review of chapter 1. Now again, chapter 1 is mostly a summary of the strategies and tools that Tony goes into in the rest of the book, but he does start out by highlighting how he used all those tools in his own life and in the life of his clients. At the beginning of the book, Tony talks about how, he was super down and out. He was unhappy with his life. He was totally broke. His car was on the verge of breaking down. He was working a job that didn't pay so well, that was exhausting. He wasn't happy with his body. He wasn't happy with his physical state. And he wasn't too happy with the way some of his relationships were going either. He actually said that he felt totally alone and totally devastated. And then one day he realized his life was going to continue this way if he didn't change something. And he knew that his life couldn't continue that way. So just in that moment, he decided his life had to change. And what did he do to ensure that his life changed? Well, glad you should ask, because he did the 3 steps that everyone needs to do in order to have long-lasting change. The first thing he did is step number 1 in creating lasting change, which is to raise your standard. This is the first thing anyone and everyone needs to do if they want to create a change in their life. If you want to change something about your life, you've got to raise your standard. You've got to know what you want out of life, and you got to know what you want from yourself. You've got to change what you demand from yourself and what you will accept from others. You've got to identify as well what you will no longer accept from yourself or others. And of course, you have to know what you aspire to become. All of these things will help you raise your standard. So I did this recently too, actually. I recently raised my standard in what I wanted for myself in my life, and I no longer tolerated a lack of pursuit of my goals. I said I must accomplish my goals. I will accomplish my goals this year because I have to. I raised my standard about what it meant to be happy with myself, be happy with my life, about what it meant to pursue my goals. It's one thing to have goals, it's another thing to actually actively work towards them. Another example is, let's say that you feel unappreciated at work. Let's say that you feel overlooked and overworked at work. Well, part of that is because you're, in a way, allowing that to happen. If you raise your standard and say, I will not tolerate being treated this way, and I know it's easier said than done, and there's lots of nuances to that experience, but as a whole, even think about workers' rights and think about strikes. I mean, what does that mean when people come together to do that? When people unionize, when people go on strike, they're saying, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We're not going to tolerate this low pay. We're not going to tolerate this ill treatment. They're raising their standards. And so that's what it means to raise your standards as well. Those are just some examples. So if you're thinking of making a change in your life, that's the first step. That's the first thing you have to consider. What ways are you raising your standards? What will you no longer tolerate in your life? What will you demand of yourself? And what do you aspire to become? Now, step number 2 is you have to believe that you can meet your higher standards. So it's great to set high standards for yourself. You could say, I want to lose weight, or I want to make a certain amount of money, or I want to support my community. I want to help create change. It's all good to have these standards, but if you don't actually believe that you can meet these standards, you're going to find ways to self-sabotage. And it's because you're going to behave in alignment with your subconscious beliefs, with what you actually believe. So in order to make sure we can meet our standards, we have to find a way to align our beliefs with them to make sure we believe that we can actually achieve and meet our standards. This is why changing our beliefs is important to accomplishing any goal and meeting any new standard that we set for ourselves. We will act into accordance of what we actually believe. So we have to take a look at what it is that we do believe and transform it. If we don't believe in ourselves, if we don't believe that what we want is possible, we have to take a look at that and find a way to transform and change that. Mina. Later on in the book, he goes into specifics about how to transform your beliefs, and I'm going to be doing a video about that next week because it's actually the next chapter and it's actually one of my favorites. It's on limiting beliefs, and I think it's actually one of the most transformative things I've ever read. So we will get into more depth about that later on, but for now, just know that you have to transform your limiting beliefs and make sure your beliefs are in alignment with your goals and your standards. You have to believe that they're possible and attainable and that you can meet them. Step number 3 to creating lasting change is change your strategy. In order to be successful, of course you need a good strategy. But what Tony says in the book is that if you raise your standards and if you change your beliefs to match your standards, if you believe that you can meet your standards, the strategy will come because your persistence will make you seek out good working strategies. And the best way to find strategies that work is to find people who have accomplished what you want to achieve, see what they did, and do it for yourself. So these are the 3 steps to lasting change that Tony outlines in chapter 1. Now, throughout the book, he goes into much more detail for each of these, and he actually talks about tools that you can use to help you achieve these 3 steps. The last bit of valuable content that Tony goes into in chapter 1 is an overview of the various things you need to master in your life in order to have control of your life and live the life you want to live. The 5 things we need to master are our emotions, our physicality, our physical body, our relationships, our finances, and time. If we can master these 5 things, we will have an easier time creating the life we want to live. If we do not learn to master these 5 things, external factors will always find a way to control us and derail us. But if we can master these 5 things, then we have control over ourselves and over our lives, which means we have the power to direct it and make it the life that we want to live. Again, in future videos, we will be going into more depth about how you can gain mastery on these 5 areas. But for now, that is an overview that you can use to explore these subjects yourself. So those are the main key points of chapter 1 from Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within book. I highly recommend reading it for yourself because there's so much valuable content in here. But I'm happy that I was able to give you the key points from that valuable content. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, thank you for being a part of my journey, and for letting me be a part of yours. Until next time, y'all, much love.